Okay. Well, Isabel, it is lovely to see you. I really appreciate, the time that you're taking on July 2nd. We're going to have a conversation, you and Rachel Donald and Tim Lenton. I get to uh, sit in behind the scenes and listen to you all, which I'm looking forward to. But before we do that, I just wanted to maybe ask a couple of questions so that the audience can get to know you a little bit. We will only have 75 minutes together on July 2nd, which is not a lot of time to talk about very important topics related to the unraveling of the climate system. So we won't get a chance to get to know you that well. So I just thought maybe we could take a few minutes and I can ask you a couple of questions just about your journey, um, so that folks can get to know you a little bit before we do that. How does that sound?
Excellent. Thank you, Asher. Thank you
Great.
for being here and thank you for taking the time and for listening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And I have to apologize. There's going to probably be background noise. I'm sitting outside in the Cascade Mountains in the land of the Wenatchee people in Washington State, where I'm on a little trip with my extended family. So I'm sitting outside. You might hear some birds, but you might also hear some trucks in the background. Um, in any case, so Isabel, maybe, and it's hard to distill a lifetime of work and learning into a few minutes, but maybe just share whatever comes to mind when I ask what has been the event or series of events that sort of brought you to the shared work, which is, the work I think of healing people and the planet.
Yes, thank you, Asher. I think it was a cascade of events that started with coincidence, I will say. I first was very interested in working internationally. I'm a lawyer by training and a linguist, and at a point in my very early career, I was sure I wanted to work in the public office. I wanted to know how it is to work as a civil servant, and I finally got into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of my country, Colombia. And by coincidence, without seeking it, my at the time mentor and very wise boss called me and said that the night before I was starting the job, called me and said, "Well, I know you like social issues, but I need someone for climate, for the climate portfolio. Would you be willing to learn something new?" And I said, "Of course. All I want is to learn something new." And that's how my life completely changed overnight, with that one invitation that I took on gladly. Since then, I have never stopped working on climate and sustainability related issues and regeneration issues. Over time, that has evolved significantly, going from being a diplomat to a consultant to working with the funding sphere and all related to international politics and climate. But then, after almost 2 decades of working in geopolitics and climate, I became aware that first that I was tired, exhausted, um, and also that I was missing many deeper layers of what the problem really seems to be. And so I started seeking, I started investigating both intellectually and really in my practice of my life, of my experience of being alive. It was a very deep and humbling quest. And that led me to now completely shift, or let's say, add to my work dimensions that are related to healing our bodies and our lands that are the same thing. Um, that are much beyond that intellectual work related to the geopolitical affairs, and that are more related to a quest for how can we reshape our human identity in the world, going upstream into what has led us to this crisis in the end, rather than only being working on the symptoms of the crisis, which is what I felt I had been doing for a long time. So in a nutshell, I guess that's it.
That's quite a journey, and I think that I can relate to that on some level. You
Mm.
know, because whichever path maybe any of us take in trying to address these really deep and systemic issues, at a certain point, I feel like we realize that it is everything in a sense,
Mm.
and we can't just try to solve. an aspect of the overall human predicament that we're in, like climate
Mm-hmm.
is a symptom in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
without getting to the whole of it, which is hard. It's hard to do. And that gets to the next question, I guess I want to ask you, which is, um, this is heavy stuff. It is hard work, um, and I'm wondering, when you face the enormity of, what we at Post Government Institute call sometimes the Great Unraveling. Others have been calling the polycrisis, or different terms that people come up with, but effectively a reckoning of the path
Mm-hmm.
that we've been on, which is heavy, right? I'm wondering if there are any things that you do, practices that you have, or ways
Mm-hmm.
um, in your life that you try to take care of yourself so that you could actually stay in this work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. It is very heavy stuff, like we all know. And I like the Great Unraveling because it has this feeling of both uh, unpredictability and adventure to it. And um, I feel that I've started to cultivate new habits. The most important one, I'll say it in concept because it has many different little practical habits to it. But the biggest concept that is new for me is practicing ways of, I'm going to use Donna Haraway's terms of staying with the trouble, practicing ways of keeping myself alert and with equanimity in the discomfort and in the pain of being vulnerable to what is happening. And that is really tough. We are not trained for that at all, neither intellectually nor physically. There are various different ways. I like doing this collectively. So in our work, we have tried to include frequent moments where we share what is troubling or painful and we help each other stay with it. And in my private life, it's also the consciousness, the awareness when things that are hard, that are painful arise. I'm trying to exercise not to immediately move away from that. And that takes, I fail like everyone, like there are slippages. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I am terrible at it. Um, Sometimes I try and, be more disciplined with meditation, with writing in the mornings, with eating healthily. All of that is part of it, of course. But I think it all started for me in the awareness of training that muscle of not avoiding pain immediately and not trying to distract myself from what is troubling or what is discomfort, not comfortable, or what is painful, basically, from our reality. And I guess one of the things that I found most transformative in my recent journey has been an intentional attempt to build intimacy with what the more than human world is telling me. Build intimate relationships with more than human beings that surround me, both the most intimate ones that I eat, for example, the beings that I eat to nourish my own body, but also those that are around me in my very immediate context that I was not used to having a conversation with or a relationship with that is reciprocal. And that has felt at times awkward, strange, funny, um, miraculous, quite insightful. I've learned so much about myself and about how I relate from trying this. So I do things as strange as speaking to what I'm going to eat or talking to my plants. That sounds strange. I think is quite normal nowadays for me. Um, but also, for example, trying to make portraits of one single other than human being on a regular basis for like a period of time. So for a week, I go and visit the same being and I make different portraits. I either photograph or also painting or writing or so I'm trying to just innovating, experimenting many different ways in which I can communicate with the more than human. I think that has been a big uh, investigation or a big inquiry for me that has led to many insights as to how to stay with the trouble. We are not alone in this. And learning that is very soothing. Mm.
And you live in a large city, so you're able to still
Yes,
find those experiences where you are.
wherever we are, because
Yeah,
we eat life every day. Every day we eat life to be alive.
yeah,
So it's as present as salt, And
yeah,
I'm in a large city, but I'm fortunate to have some plants around me
mhm.
in my home. I don't have other than human members of my family directly, but animals, but there are presences in my own body that I sometimes try to connect with. All of my, let's say, the parts of my holobiont being. So yeah, of
Yeah,
course I try to go
yeah,
out of the city. That's also part of it. But
yeah,
I felt we have to practice in our everyday life because otherwise it keeps being something far away. And it's about
yeah,
bringing it close to the everyday.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, thanks for taking a little bit of time just to for us to get to know you a little bit, and for people who are viewing this before the event, we're going to be talking about the unraveling of the climate system and how we navigate it. And in addition to the conversation we have with you and Tim, we're also going to be offering some interviews with some other folks and some resources that are really around trying to help people find their own path through this, find their own way of staying with the trouble. Because the truth of the matter is that we need everyone involved on whatever level. And I think sometimes people feel because the scale of this crisis is so large that they don't have agency in it, but that's not the truth. We all
That's
have
not
agency.
true.
So,
We all do. Thank you very much, Asher. I look forward
yeah,
to our conversation
yeah.
next July the
Thanks,
2nd.
Isabel. Yeah,
Thank you.
talk soon.